See you as well.
Yay! Okay, so we're going to get started. People will be logging in perhaps as these conversations go. So my name is Eduardo Placer. I'm the founder of Fearless Communicators. Everyone here, I think, knows who I am. We started this Fearless Chat series immediately as a response to the Corona pandemic, knowing that one, I had a lot of questions. There were a lot of things that I didn't know, faced with all the uncertainty of what was happening. And part of the privilege of being someone who's in the world of thought leadership, is that I have a lot of experts in my network who think about these things. So I thought, let me pull from the vast resource of thought leaders that I have to start having important and relevant conversations about things that are super top of mind. Allison, who's on the call right now, she led a call on Tuesday on how we talk about sales and how do we sell in this current landscape, specifically for those who are running businesses. Michael Kay is a private client of Fearless Communicators. He is an author. He's also a creative musician. He's also, beyond writing books on financial well-being, he also is a creative writer. He's also a musician. He plays the trumpet. He's also a father and a friend. He also makes a mean Seder dinner with a horseradish thing that he makes his own homemade horseradish, which makes the eyes kind of pop. I had the privilege of working with Michael on a series of keynotes, one around a book that he wrote called The Feel Rich Project. And then he then took this thought process, and he actually went to India and delivered a keynote in India around his thought leadership in financial life planning. Actually, it's interesting, just a connecting point, Angie's company is based in India as well. So that's, anyway, just an interesting connector at that point. So that gives us a context. And then before we jump into the meat of it, I'm going to pass the baton over to Deborah for a moment. Deborah is an associate of Fearless Communicators, and she's going to lead us in a little bit of a grounding and a centering so we can land on planet Earth, and then we can lean into the conversation.
Thank you, Eduardo. Welcome everybody to Thursday's Fearless Chat.
Asked if I would be willing to join this share and have a conversation. I was like, didn't take with great excitement just to be able to come and share some thoughts this time, especially because this is such an insane time for everybody. We're all experiencing levels of anxiety and fear and doubt, and whether your jobs are in jeopardy or just not knowing, undoubtedly if anyone has money that's been invested in the stock market, that it's worth less today than it was on January 1st. And there's just so much fear out there. And my work as a financial life planner is just centered around, first of all, helping people understand their values, understand their money mindset, about where do they come from, with what helps them make decisions that are really aligned with their values, and what are some of the factors that impact those decisions, and how do you kind of deflect off all the noise that's out there, because there's nothing but noise out there. You could sit and watch the news 24/7 and hear every update on, the number of people that are sick or dead or, whatever, and just be filled with anxiety from the minute you wake up to the minute you don't sleep, and you sit up in bed all night. And money is one of those things that impacts how we, our levels of comfort with everything else. If our financial life is stable, if we've looked at the things that are most important to us and address those issues, and know that we're moving at least not in the wrong direction. And that we know that, I've had people who, and I'll just say that throughout this crisis and throughout past stock market events and recessions and things like that, while each recession that we've gone through has been for a different reason, and they're all normal. They never feel good. They're always filled with fear and anxiety, like it's the end of the world. But in fact, it's only the end of the world is the end of the world. And I can share a story with you from this happened in the last recession, because we've done such a good job, I think, of keeping people from getting too panicky by just having lots of conversations. But in the last recession, when there was all this fear going on of the whole global economic situation was going to melt down, and we were going to be the end of the world. In Europe, everything was going to hell. And I had a client of mine who was a retired attorney living up in Vermont, out in the country, and he calls me up on the phone and he says, Michael, I goes, my son works for a hedge fund, and I think I should sell. He says I should sell everything and buy gold. What do you think? And I said, well, before I answer your question, I need to hear you exhale. And he was like, what? I said, I just need to hear you exhale, because I'm getting all this. So he goes, okay, what do you think? I said, well, if you really believe in your heart of hearts that this is the end of the world and that your money is worth nothing, then gold is worth nothing, cash is worth nothing, stocks are worth nothing, bonds are worth nothing. So my best recommendation is to sell everything and buy pop-top cans of Progresso soup. And there was just dead silence on the phone, just not a sound, and I said, if you honestly believe this is the end, that's my best financial advice for you. But if that's not how you actually feel, you actually don't believe it's the end of the world, have a glass of wine, go for a walk, have a cup of coffee, relax. So about 30 seconds after we hung up the phone, I get a call from someone from the Wall Street Journal. And she says, I'm sorry to bother you. I'm sure your phone is ringing off the hook. And I said, actually, I've had one phone call, and I shared the story. So the story wound up in the Wall Street Journal the next day. And about 2 weeks later, my son, who was at the time he was doing a semester in law school in London, calls me up and says, Dad, he goes, I just read an article in the London Times in which you were quoted about buying pop-top cans of some local soup in England that they took the story and they localized it, since I guess Progresso was not a big brand in the UK. Right. So the fact is that we are, as human beings, we are subject to all the external stuff that goes on out there. Buy this. I see the E-Trade ads of people telling you, we're going to give you tools how you can pick the best stocks. It's nonsense. The idea is we need to start from a foundation of understanding who we are and what we really want in our lives. And so, Eduardo had mentioned the book that I wrote called The Feel Rich Project. It's really a study of understanding our own beliefs, behaviors, and habits around money, and building a financial life that's based on our realities. I'm never going to own an island or a private plane or a 60-foot yacht, and I'm perfectly okay with that. And nor do I aspire to any of that stuff. But I do aspire to being able to put my head on the pillow at night and know that, I can support my family and send my granddaughter a gift or something, or, be able to enjoy a nice walk. Those are the things that are most important to me, that my family's close by and I get to enjoy them. So when we go through times like this, we really need to start at kind of re-examining, where are we? So I see people who, when, a lot of the things that I write about, and you're all invited. If you have questions, you can go on my firm's website, and you can, I write blogs every week on different money topics, and you're certainly welcome to subscribe
I
to
just
them.
put it in the chat. So I put your website and also
Okay,
your
good.
email address in
Yes.
the chat. So that's
Right.
something.
So if you, so you'll see under one of the tabs, it's called Money Log, is where all the little blogs are. And don't worry, no one, no one's going to be solicited. We don't do that. But I think I've been writing articles for Forbes and Psychology Today and Inc.com for years. And my idea is, like, let's connect our lives and our money together, because it doesn't stand alone. So the idea is, how do we get more in touch with what we care about and live our life according to that? I don't know whether you're familiar with the idea of, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the idea of the baseline being, air, food, and then
Shelter.
safety and security and things like that. And money is in that area of safety and security. What happens if, what happens if you lose your job? Do I have too much debt? Do I need to get rid of my debt so that I have less pressure on me should there be an economic downturn? What are the things that I need to, who do I need to protect, or what do I need to protect? And how do I act accordingly? And so as we move up those needs up to that, moving up towards other gratification and, in Maslow's hierarchy, we really want to just think about having that baseline of security and understanding what that means for us. And everyone's different. If you're in a secure job, then you don't need and you don't have a lot of debt. Well, you might not need an emergency fund that's a year long. I have clients of mine who are athletic trainers at the gym, and they get paid based on the number of training sessions they do. And if they're sick, or there's a problem, or they earn no money. And when I tell them that they need to have at least 9 months of liquidity sitting on the sidelines, they look at me like, that's crazy. I said, yeah, but what happens if you can't train? So it's really understanding your situation and start piecing together, well, where are the potential landmines? Where are the potential problems? And let's identify them and plan to those potential problems that really would keep your head off the pillow at night. Because at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. It really is about of being able to have enough peace of mind that you're moving in the right direction. We talk about, trying to live a balanced life, our money life, our family life, our health, our leisure life, our spiritual life, all these other aspects of that go into how we live our life. They're not always going to be in balance. There are times that we have to put way more energy and effort into our health, or way more energy and effort into our business life, or our money life. And it's always going to shift. I talk to my own children. I'm fortunate to have, 2 independent children, both married, both working. And my daughter, who, I failed both my children because they're both attorneys. So it's a sorrow. It's sorrow in my heart, but they're actually wonderful human beings. And my daughter, who's balancing her career, and she has a child, and they're all working, and finding balance is real tough when you have a youngster, and a husband and a home and all these other things that go into it. And how do you make everybody happy? And the first thing is what's going to make you happy? What's going to allow you to have some peace and know that it's never fixed? It's always a moving target. But we have to start with, in my opinion, we start with our health first. We start with, because that's the thing that we can't repair. You can always repair credit. You can always work more. You can always find a way to squeeze out $1. But without health, none of that stuff matters.
I love that you're saying that, Michael, because this is the first time I've heard someone who's a financial life planner say, watch your food, do your health, you can always repair your credit. So in the space of coronavirus, eat healthy, focus on what there is for you to focus on. Everything else can be taken care of. I'm curious, Michael, because I think for some people, one of the things that I think is interesting, just because I happen to know them, is we have a husband and a wife on the call together. So Sarbelia or Nono and Eric are married, and they have 2 kids. So I don't know where you're keeping the children right now, but there's the reality that, these are 2 adults, who have jobs, and they have 2 children. So now they're at home with the kids. So, so there's these navigations. Some people didn't weren't in a position where they could save the 9 months worth of security blanket. And this is the crisis. Like, we're in the unexpected context that we should be planning for, that maybe we planned a little bit for or didn't plan enough for, but we're finding ourselves in it. And I guess, where do we begin in this moment, or where would you look, or what are the things that we can do in this moment to kind of ground ourselves, so we can start, so we don't feel like we're completely submerged.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm, I shared very openly that on Tuesdays, for 2 weeks, I didn't look at my bank statements. Like, I was like, everything's fine. I didn't look at my checking account. I didn't look at my business one. And then on Tuesday, I was like, I'm going to look. And then I was like, and I'm fine.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm fine. I do have a little bit of a savings. Personally, I do have a little bit of savings for the business, so, and I'm taking advantage of all the stuff that's, coming down the landscape.
Sure.
And there's still the, that's
well, I'll use this word for you especially, and that is, it's called adulting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're going to say it's hashtag Michigas.
Right. And, it's like, and I say this to people and they look at me like I'm a little crazy, but it's okay. And I say, you got to kiss reality somewhere near the mouth. Okay.
Yes. Right. I'm going to put that in the chat. Okay. Let's kiss reality somewhere near the mouth.
Okay.
Ooh. Michael, you brought some truth.
We can live in whatever fantasy that we want to, but what do we gain by it, by avoiding reality? Now, if you're sitting there, with a 401k plan and you're not, or your retirement plan, whatever IRAs, that is not in the picture in terms of your current planning, don't look at it. There's no point in looking at it unless it's sitting in cash right now, which it shouldn't be, especially if you're young enough to withstand market turmoils. Because I will tell you that if you look at the history of this, I'll just give you a very basic primer on the stock market. And that is, if you look at the 10-year rolling average of the stock market from 1926 to 1935, 1927, 1936, blah, 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 blah. You look at the averages, and there's going to be 2 down years, 2 flat years, 2 fair years, 2 good years, 2 very good years, and a recession every 20, 25 years. Those are the averages. Get over it, okay? So anyone who believes that the stock market's never going to go up or never going to go down, they don't know what they're talking about. The market's never going to go down. They don't know what they're talking about. So if it's just like, if you look at the value of your investment the day that the market hit its high, and then you use that as the barometer for where you are, I will tell you that it's an absolute false reading, because the markets were so, and I really don't like this expression, but I think it's the right one here, they're over their skis. They were so far, the markets were so overvalued that it had to correct. So whatever the market value was on the day that it hit its high before it started to melt down is an irrelevant number. But as human beings, we keep that into our head as like, well, my investment was worth $80,000. Now it's worth $60,000. But that point in time, it changes every day. It changes minute to minute. So the point is as long as you have the right allocation, that matches your planning and your, because planning should uh, will tell you what the right asset allocation is, not the other way around. So as long as you have the right, planning informs investments, not the other way around. So if you are have the right amount of time frame, you can withstand market volatility that's normal, you're properly allocated, who cares what the market was on its highest or at its lowest? It's not the date in which you're selling. So don't worry about that. Focus on the things that you can control, such as know your numbers. Okay, look at your cash accounts, look at your savings, look at your, look at your debt, look at what has to come out every month, look what's coming in, know your numbers. Do you have to know it down to the penny? No. There's some people who do. God bless them. I'm not one of those people. Okay, I'm not this like, well, my monthly is $3,487.27. No. Know what your numbers are, but get an idea. What does it cost me? What does food cost me? What do I have to account for food? For what insurances do I need? Do I have the right amount of protection? Do I have a deductible that's too low or too high? What am I missing? What kind of things can I control now? How do I reduce my debt? If any of you have mortgages, this could be a great time to refinance a mortgage and get a lower rate. If you have if you can certainly, if this crisis has impacted your income, is contact your creditors and let them know. Don't hide. Don't do an Eduardo where you kind of bail on it and say, I'm not going to look, I'm not going to look, I'm not going to look. So, know what your numbers are, know what's going out each month. Do you have to know how much you spend on, on dry cleaning?
You can't go to the dry cleaner anyway.
Exactly. My dry cleaner has been closed for weeks now, and it's like, that's okay. I wear jeans and button down shirts or sweaters to work, so it's fine.
So there's some specific questions that have appeared in the chat, and if you have, I'm going to open it up in a second for a conversation. But because one of the things that you were also talking about is, not just what's important to us, and starting from like, what do we really value as the beginning point of the conversation. So like, instead of like going straight into panic and craze, do you know what I mean? The question is like, what do I value and how can I put my attention on what I value? And Angie in San Francisco wrote, how to support friends and family in this tough time, people who are losing jobs and people who are losing income. Because for some people, they're okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are fine. Some people, like in this moment, like they have a salary, they have a job, they feel like they're okay. And around them, that's not the case for people. Right. So how can you be a resource, or how can you support people during this time?
Yeah, I think that I think really falls in great alignment with the idea of, once you know what your situation is, in what ways can you help others, be it financially, emotionally, in whatever way that you can lend support. And unless you know your numbers and you know what you can afford to say, let me help you with these with your situation. Unless you really have a good, keen understanding of your situation, both your job, your job security, your amount of financial security, what other, understanding, what are the, again, understanding as wide as you can, what are the things that could impact my security or my financial world. And once you look at those and identify those things, you can assess whether you've got surplus in which you can help others. I think it's really important. But again, it starts with your knowledge and starts with your willingness. And then it goes to communication and that openness of being able to share with someone what you really want to do and how you want to do it.
I think there's like there's the practical piece of it, right? But there's also the financial piece of it. There's the emotional piece of it, right? So there's the, like, some people, like, you may be in a position to actually lend people. Some people may be in a position to say, you know, like, if you need a little bit of money, I can give you. So, but then we get into a whole other conversation, right, around personal relationships and borrowing and all that other stuff, boundaries, you know. But then there's also emotional support, like, you know. So I think that some people who may be feeling like everything is okay for me may be ashamed of sharing that
Right.
to
I would,
somebody else, because they're like, they don't want to feel like everyone else is suffering and I'm actually okay right now. I don't want to be like, you know, rubbing it in.
right. Um, that's all about relationships and about being able to say to someone, you know, I don't know where you are, or, you know, I want you to lean on me. I'm okay with this. But I would also tell you emotionally that if you're going to try and lend money to people with the expectation that you're going to get it back, it's probably a mistake. So if you go into it with saying, listen, I've been blessed with some resources. I have this amount of surplus that I'd be happy to share with you. If you're ever in a position that you can give it back, that's fine, but there's no strings attached. Otherwise, living with expectation that you're going to get it back or set it up as a serious loan situation is a formula for personal and you know, personal disaster and emotional strife. So if you're in the position to help people, you know, that's amazing. But just uh, you know, go in with your eyes open, and, you know, being able to have a real conversation with people, you know, with people that you care about, and be able to, you know, say, you know, one of the things you know, I feel very blessed in, you know, having people sitting across from people, whether it's on a computer screen or in person, and have them open up about what they really think or what they really feel or what they really experience around money and relationships, and how very frequently spouses have completely different attitudes about money because they grew up differently around money. You know, I know siblings who grew up in the same household who look at money completely differently. I have a very dear friend of mine who he has an older brother who is very cautious with money. He's very conservative. His father was in the building business. It was in a building. He was in buying buildings or whatever, construction. And I guess during the time that he was growing up, money was tight. When my friend came along, the younger son, the father had hit it pretty big. And this friend of mine, he can't deal with money. He's terrible with money. He's a complete and utter disaster.
It's like, cash, cash, cash. Show me the money. Show me the money. Show me the money. Making it rain. Yeah.
And they grew up in the same household, but they got different messages around money.
Yeah.
And we all accept it in through different, you know, don't forget, we learn about our attitudes about money come from a youngster's perception. How we learn about money comes from what we hear from our parents, the money messages that we get, either verbal or nonverbal. You know,
I would love, Michael, I love it, because we actually did some work on this when we were working on your talk. And I would love for people, if they want to put in the chat, like if there's like a money narrative that there may have been with their family. For me, like, money was magical. Like the narrative in my immigrant family is that it was like we had no money, but money magically always appeared when we needed it. You know, so I was like, oh, it's this magical, mystical little thing that like kind of always magically shows up. And then, but the narrative is like, we don't have anything, right? I love Alice. It's like, easy come, easy go. Spend it if you got it. Do you know what I mean? Totally. So I think it's interesting because, again, we all navigate that. And I think one of the things Ivy even said, ask people for what they need. And I think that how can we have very open conversations? Like, I think what we really do is we're very closeted, even in personal relationships, around money and our conversations around money. And this is a stressful time around money that I think it's a really powerful time to actually start having the conversations with our partners, with our loved ones, with our family, like to really start having those open conversations around, okay, so this is what's so, let's get grounded in the facts, let's get grounded in the numbers, and then like, what are we creating here? Like what are the narratives that we have that are based on a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, you know, which may not necessarily be true in the moment. I love Deborah. There is enough, but just enough. Deborah's one of 7, you know?
There's people grow up with so much blame and shame around money.
Yeah.
And the idea that, because first of all, our parents, I'm sure none of our parents were money experts. Definitely. To be able to give lessons to their children about, let's sit down and talk about money, you know, and because first of all, I mean, I'm 66 years old, and
you look great, Michael K. You look great, Michael K. Yeah.
My father was a school teacher and a musician. My mother was a musician. My father grew up in the Depression. My mother was 11 years younger, and they fought constantly about money. And my money message was money equals conflict. And it wasn't until many years later that I understood why I would get this feeling in my stomach whenever a money conversation would come up. And I realized that it came from this experience of growing up hearing this screaming fights about money. So we all have our history, we all have our stories, but we have to say, okay, well, are these stories real, and do they support us? Or do they take us further away from what we value most? So my hope and wish is that for everyone is to kind of understand where they are right now, where they are, what are the things that are creating the anxiety. Money creates its own anxiety because people are always, well, they have more than I have, or they're more successful than I am. And it's measured against possessions, not measured against true wealth, which is that feeling of comfort and joy that you're doing what you care most about, or you're being with people you care most about. And what could be more a better demonstration of today, of the things where I can't go hug and kiss my granddaughter. Okay, I can see her from the car and wave, or through a window or on FaceTime, but it's what I value most. I can't sit around a table and have a meal with my children, you know, and my wife, and be able to just share and talk and have it. I can't do that now, and it's what I value most. Yeah. And it's not gauged by money. Yeah. But money, when we're dealing with things of safety and security, we need to know we're there. Yeah. And we need to work towards those things, because the rest of it all comes from up here, and our hearts to be able to kind of push us to that direction up Maslow's hierarchy to the things of higher need. Yeah. But without that safety and security, it's really hard to get there.
I love what you said, Michael. I know Ivy's a new grandmother, so I can imagine that she's like, where is my little grandchild? You know, I think you're trying to unmute yourself. You know, today is my mom's birthday, and my mom is in Boston with my sister. So we're doing a Zoom call. I'm going to call into the Zoom. My twin brother's in Hawaii. He's going to Zoom in. My uncle, who's in Fort Lauderdale, will also call in. And then at 9 p.m., all of the extended family is going to surprise her in the Zoom. So I have her cousins and friends and all these people coming in. So you can't buy that.
No.
Do you know what I mean? That, I think that with all of that, like I can imagine the surprise when she's never been in a Zoom chat before. When all of a sudden at 73, there's like ping, ping, ping. She's like, Rosemary, Henry, what are you guys all doing? Like, what is this? All of a sudden it's the Brady Bunch, and we're all like looking in these boxes, you know, and trying to figure out, oh my God, what the hell is happening? So I know Allison had a very practical question to ask, and then I just wanted to kind of open it up to see what else was top of mind for people. There were some beautiful, oh my God, Ivy, your granddaughter's living with you. You're all together. Oh my God, that's beautiful.
Oh,
Your family's oh my God, that's so great. I love
I'm
that.
jealous.
Yes. You know, Brian just talked about the fact that he grew up with nothing, that he lost, his parents had each lost a parent when they were 12. So it was all about frugality. Sarvelia grew up with a single mom. Her name is, I call her Nono, but her name is Sarvelia. So money was always live within your means. You know, you can splurge occasionally, but the most important thing is security. So again, it's like all of these things that are running through our brains. Allison, you had a very practical question to ask. So do you just want to ask it directly?
Yeah, so practical. Although all of this mindset stuff is probably more what I need. So my very practical question was, I one thing I do very well with money is save up for my taxes as an entrepreneur, and was getting ready to, got our taxes done, make that tax payment, pay my Q1 for 2020, but now all of a sudden they're not due until July. And just given the state of the world, do I need cash on hand? Like, what should I do with that money? Should I just pay it as normal, or should I hang on to it until July? And if I do hang on to it, where do I put it?
Okay. Obviously, not knowing the whole picture, my gut reaction is to say, pay it when it's due.
Which is July, right?
Right. And keep the money into a savings or a money market account that'll, pay you a
Cool.
couple of pennies,
Yeah.
but nothing more than that.
Cool. Great.
If you can find let's see, we're in March, April, May, June. So if you can find a 3-month CD that's, give you a couple of pennies more, do that.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I certainly wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do more than that.
Perfect.
But if it's not due till July,
don't pay it.
Don't pay it. Don't pay it.
I feel like there's a part of me that's a goody that's like, I want to be the A+ student, and it's due April 15th, so I will submit on April 15th.
Except that it's not due April 15th.
Right.
Due July 15th or June 15th or whatever. So
follow the rules.
Yeah.
I love that.
Cool. I think it's my, like, oh, sorry. I was just going to say, like, I feel like it's my, like, I just want it. It's my, like, disdain for even thinking about it. I'm like, I don't even want it hanging around for me to think about until July. Like, I just want to get rid of it. So, but I appreciate that. I'm gonna namaste and keep my money.
So absolutely, open up a separate little online account so that it's out of your hands. It's out of your vision.
Yeah.
You'll know that come July 10th, you'll unwind it. You'll send the money off and done.
Cool. Thank you.
One of the beautiful things, Michael does not advocate or support, and like he doesn't sell any financial products. Do you know what I mean? So there's no like, do this thing, but an online thing. I love that I'm giving financial advice. I'm the financial expert. Like no fees. I have one on Ally that you can just like move super easy. Brian, you have a question as well. And Miri, I saw that you posted one too. I'll get to that in a second too. So Brian, what is your question?
Sure. This is probably multi-layered, but my guess is you'll have some wisdom to offer several of us in the room and maybe more. I know a few of us are entrepreneurs with our own small businesses, and some of the conversations I've been on with my peer entrepreneurs. And by the way, I'm a brand new entrepreneur, so I'm like a baby. I've learned from all of them, but one of the things I've heard is this is a time to do the infrastructure projects and the behind it, and that all makes sense to me. I also get that there's investments in those projects, and I haven't necessarily built up the money to be able to say I have that money to invest back in the business. And just given the state of the world today and so much uncertainty, and the world that the parents that I come from, which is don't spend money. Certainly don't spend money if you're going to borrow the money to spend it. But I'm also someone who says, well, sometimes you got to invest in yourself to make things possible, and I believe in that. And I'm just not sure the way to think about it, and given the current state of the world, of how do we think about investing in ourselves or our businesses, and prepare for what's next, while being mindful of we don't know what's next.
That's a great question, Brian. And my reaction to that is, it really depends on your ability to put your head on the pillow at night. You know, your pillow factor of, you know, if you go out and you borrow money to invest in yourself and you're up all night counting the brush strokes on the ceiling, it's probably a bridge too far for you right now. So you have to know yourself, you know, to thine own self be true. And if you know in your, you know, down here in your gut that this is, that you can live with your decision, right, wrong, or indifferent, because nobody's given a guarantee of anything. So if you believe that what you're doing is in your overall best interest and you can live with the results of it one way or the other, then you do it. If you cannot, when we do financial planning and we start with, we never ask someone, tell us the best case scenario. We see, what's the worst case scenario? Can you live with the worst case scenario? If you can live with that worst case scenario, no brainer, right? Make sense? So if you can't live with your decision and it's going to make you that uncomfortable, go light, go easy, edge in slowly. If you can live with the results of your decision, right, wrong, or indifferent, go for it.
And I would say, Brian, within that, I think that specifically now, because there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of snake oil salesmen that are out and about. Do you know what I mean? So I would just make sure that when you, like, if you are choosing to invest in something, like, just make sure that that's a vetted, you know, talk to the entrepreneurs or the people that you know, that you really feel like there's something of real value that you're getting from it. Is the thing, is what I would say from my entrepreneurial conversation. Do you know what I mean? Like, and there's a lot of stuff that people are right now specifically are giving away for free, like to start building relationships. So, you know, like, really do your due diligence. You can shop around. There's a lot of experts. There's a lot of people with expertise that are really in a space of generosity. And I think just start, and you can start kind of dipping your toe and feeling like maybe right now is not the moment to drop all the money on something, but it may be an interesting conversation point around start exploring what a relationship would be with someone to participate in a program or something like that.
Got it. That's super helpful. Well, both of those answers were super helpful. I mean, and I think the other thing, just back to Michael's answer, part of it for me, and no one here is going to solve this, but is that putting my parents' voices away and just listening to my own voice is, it's like, I have much more comfort with incurring some sort of debt to invest in myself. And I don't have a significant amount of comfort, and I know what my sort of range of comfort is, but it's very different than my parents, which would be, don't do it at all. So listening to my own voice is hard.
And I think the guilt, it's like the little eight, like we have the it's like, I'm like, spend, and then it's like shame.
Yes.
You know,
Brian, when I started my career, I was an accountant. I was a CPA for 10 years before I went into this business. And my father who was never an entrepreneur, was devastated when I gave up my CPA license. Like, how could you do something so stupid? You know, to take a risk on a business that you don't know will be successful. And, you know, again, it comes down to whose voice are you going to listen to? So it goes back to thine own self be true.
Yeah. Shakespeare. Yes.
Thank you both. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So Miri, and I know Ivy had a question here too. So Miri wrote, budgeting, how would you approach making or adjusting your business budget for the remaining 2020 when nothing is certain?
That's a tough question. Again, you know, obviously I don't know what your business is, and I don't know what threats you have to your business, but you know, look at where if there are places that you can cut without cutting your throat. Where can you trim back expenses that are not highly valued? And it's the same thing with all of us, whether as business people or as individuals. If you take a look at your spending and all the areas in which you spend money, and say,
just to give you a context, Michael, just to give you a context, she runs a small business. It's a clothing store.
Right.
And there were orders that were placed for fall, winter of 20.
Yeah. So the idea of there's a hierarchy there of your spending. If you take a look at everything you spend money on, take a look at your last year's expenses and say, did I really value this? Did I really value this? Did I really value this? Use a scale. You can use a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the most valued, 1 you don't really value it at all, and you'll get a sense of where you can make cuts. When it comes to a clothing store, oh man, depending on what your market is and where your market is, if you're all, if it's a walk-in trade or regular customers, I have to believe that coming out of this sequestered life that we're living now, that people are going to be out and about and will be shopping. The garment business is a treacherous one, as I'm sure I've had a lot of clients in it over the years, and it has to do with taste and style and fashion and who your customer base is. So if you want to send me an email and arrange, just have you and I have a chat, I'd be happy to do that and give you some thoughts about it, but I'd need a little bit more information, but I'd be happy to do that, Mary.
Yeah. And then Ivy wrote, is there a credit card available that will do a 0% interest transfer to pay off higher interest cards that she used to start her business? And if not, are there any government grants or loans that an entrepreneur might use to pay down debt and keep afloat?
Well, a lot of it depends on your credit worthiness right now. If your credit's pretty good, you should be able to do credit card transfers pretty simply right now. I would just Google, 0% interest rates, credit cards, and see what's offered out there. As far as, and right now we're still unpacking in our office. I've got one of my employees is kind of unpacking the new CARE Act, et cetera, and we're sending out information to clients now, or hopefully, by tomorrow, about some of the aspects of it. So, if you have a CPA that you work with, who might be able to, who has some of this already synthesized, and there's also a lot of information out there in terms of what government is doing for small business owners right now, through SBA or other sources. So it's just all so new. It was just signed, I think it was on Friday, 800-page law that people are still trying to get their arms around.
And Ivy, I know that you're in New York City, and there's an emergency grant that is for New York businesses. And the deadline is tomorrow at 5 p.m. to apply for that. So I know there's a lot that's out there. My bookkeeper is literally going through and sourcing all the stuff, because I was like, I have no idea. Like, I start looking at those things and my brain starts like shrinking, so I think that's a place, Ivy, to also just ask for support and ask for help, and I think people are willing to be of resource, So we can talk offline if that's something that helps you too. So we're winding up here, on our call. Are there any other final questions or anything that anyone would? I know we heard from Brian and Ivy and Allison. I know Angie's also in retail, so she said that she works in online retail, and online is likely to increase by 100%, 20% increase to 40% of all transactions. So Miri, if you want to reach out to Angie, that's also an opportunity to speak to someone who's also in the clothing landscape. And
happy to do that for sure. Feel free to reach out. Small businesses are the ones that will survive. Big retailers are the ones that are Macy's and so on are not going to survive. So it's actually, if you invest in the right things, a good time for small online businesses. Yay.
Yay. So Michael, Allison wanted to just share if there's a little bit about how you work with people, if you're willing to share a little bit about that.
Sure. Financial Life Focus is a fee-only financial planning firm. We charge a retainer fee for our work with clients. It's based on a movable formula that's based on a lot of different factors. We have, as Eduardo said, while we do manage money for clients, it's all included in the fee. We're here to serve clients. We are completely independent. We have no axe to grind. We have no conflicts of interest. And to us, there's nothing more important than the relationships that we build. I'm deeply passionate about helping people. And we have clients who are ultra, ultra wealthy, and we have clients who are just getting by. And that's okay. It's not like, everyone has needs, and if someone gets what we do, and I invite you, as Eduardo posted on the chat, our website, and you can take a look at our website and get a sense of the feel for who we are and what we do. I was blessed enough to come across, work with a marketing person out in California, and she brought me into people that she knows, and we did some videos a couple of years ago. So it talks a little bit about financial life planning and what it is and what it isn't. And it was 2 days of hell of me standing in front of a camera with a full cast and crew of people with makeup brushes and stand this way and stand that way. And it was an exercise in being way outside my comfort zone, but I gave myself up to it and just tried to have fun with it. So yeah, it is about, you can't disconnect life and money, but you can connect who you are as a person and what you care about and what you value, and use that as to project forward what you do and how you do it. And money is just one aspect of it.
Michael, thank you so much for sharing that. I have a personal relationship with, I think, everybody on this call, so I'm not going to do the introduction of who I am. I think you all know who I am. And I want you to know that we do these talks every Tuesday and Thursday, so that is our ongoing contribution going forward. Next week is a combo platter because we have Passover and we also have Easter. Do you know what I mean? So there are holidays and celebrations. I actually did a Seder with Michael and his family last year, so I will be missing the horseradish this year.
There will be no horseradish.
There will be no horseradish this year. What a shame. What a shanda.
No. Well, listen, I have to tell you something. It is the worst job in the world. It is.
I know, but you suffer and you love to suffer, and you love to tell everyone about how much you suffer making that horseradish.
It is the worst job in the world. It is an exercise in red crying eyes. It's worse than like taking onions and going like this. It's 1,000 times worse. But I do it every year like a complete and total idiot. But that's what they expect, so I do it.
So if you can keep yourself on video for a quick second, if possible, we're just going to do a quick little snapshot of everybody on the call. So smiley, smile, smile. 1, 2, 3. And so next week we have a medium.
Bosco has a waiver that has to be signed, though. Just
he has a waiver. I got it. He's a member of
I had to give everyone a laugh.
I love it. Yeah, he has a waiver. We'll sign. We'll post it on Instagram. So next Tuesday we have Christine Agro. She was a participant in our Fearless Force program in the 5th circle. She's a medium and connects to the spirits. And she's going to be talking about energy and like what the hell is going on energetically in the world and the planet, and kind of connecting around that. And then on Thursday, we have Alan Cohen, who's also a private client. And we're going to talk about connection and how do we create connection in times of uncertainty. So those are the two conversations for the next week. Then the following week, I think we have is that our series? No, then we have branding. So then we have Brandy Bernowski, who's the website designer for Brene Brown. She's going to be talking about online narrative. We have Danielle Christine Toussaint, who's going to talk about storytelling and the various ways that that appears on your digital platforms. And then we have Jacqueline Romano, who's a videographer, who's going to talk about digital assets and how we can tell our stories virtually and online. So that's going to be a series of resources. So just look out for that. I will be emailing you and sharing that. These are all free. And it's an opportunity for us to, one, be in community, and two, be of service. My heart is full in being on this call with all of you, people who I profoundly love. I hope that you are healthy. I hope that you are well. And for this moment of virtual connection, I am aspirational for the moment that we get to be in physical space together again soon. And always remember to fear less, speak free, and love more. So thank you so much. Mwah. Bye. And then we'll share a recording of this. Also, if there are things that you may be like, oh, I want to go back, that really resonated with me. And if there are any other resources, again, Michael K's email is in the chat, his website, and then I'm going to put it at the top again. Again, thank you, Deborah, for putting that in. Is also in the chat for everyone to see. So you can get a hold of him. And his book, The Feel Rich Project, is also a really wonderful read. We have a lot of time right now. And I think you can see that this is a beautiful values-based conversation around who we are and how we relate to our finances. So, okay. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.